December 1937. In Nanjing, China's capital, Japanese soldiers staged a macabre contest, who would behead 100 Chinese first, using only a samurai sword. Lieutenants Toshiaki Mukai and Tsuyoshi Noda were celebrated as heroes in Tokyo newspapers. Within 6 weeks, up to 300,000 civilians and prisoners would be executed. 20,000 women would be raped. It was the greatest urban atrocity of the 20th century, and the world took decades to confront what truly happened in those streets drenched in blood. It was July 1937. Imperial Japan invaded China after the Marco Polo Bridge incident. Shanghai fell in November, after 3 months of brutal combat that cost the Japanese army over 40,000 casualties. Enraged and thirsty for revenge, the generals advanced toward Nanjing, the nationalist capital of Chiang Kai-shek. The city sheltered 1 million inhabitants, including hundreds of thousands of terrified refugees. The government fled to Chongqing. Nanjing was left to its fate, without leadership and without hope. Japan had pursued an Asian empire since the Meiji Restoration of 1868. Manchuria was seized in 1931. Militarist ideology preached racial superiority over the Chinese, described as subhuman. Japanese officers received verbal orders to take no prisoners. General Iwane Matsui commanded the forces, but was temporarily replaced by Prince Asaka Yasuhiko, uncle of Emperor Hirohito. Historians point out that the prince issued the secret order to kill all captives, opening the floodgates for the horror that would follow in Nanjing. In December 1937, 150,000 Japanese soldiers surrounded Nanjing. The Ming walls, 20 meters high, were bombarded by heavy artillery and aircraft. Chinese General Tang Xingji promised to defend the city to the death, but fled on the night of December 12, abandoning 100,000 soldiers without orders. Chaos erupted. Soldiers exchanged uniforms for civilian clothes and blended with the population. It was precisely the pretext the Japanese would use to justify mass executions within the conquered city. December 13, 1937. Nanjing fell. Japanese troops entered through the Zhonghua Gate and immediately began hunting Chinese soldiers. But the definition of soldier was broad, any man between 15 and 40 was suspect. Thousands were bound, taken to the banks of the Yangtze River, and machine-gunned in groups. Bodies were thrown into the water, which ran red for kilometers. Photographs show piles of corpses in the streets. In just 3 days, it is estimated that 50,000 prisoners were summarily executed by imperial troops. Prince Asaka Yasuhiko, born in 1887, was uncle of Emperor Hirohito and one of the most powerful men in Japan. Sent to Nanjing in December, he took operational command of the siege. According to the testimony of Officer Cho Isamu, the prince issued the order to execute all captives, an order that circulated with his personal seal. After the war, protected by imperial immunity negotiated by the Americans, Asaka was never tried. He died in 1981, aged 93, never having apologized for the atrocities committed under his command. Amid the horror, 22 foreigners formed the International Safety Zone. The leader was John Rabe, a German businessman and member of the Nazi Party, who used his swastika armband to intimidate Japanese soldiers. American missionary Minnie Vautrin sheltered 10,000 women at Jinling College. Dr. Robert Wilson operated on victims day and night. Together, they protected approximately 250,000 Chinese within 4 square kilometers. It was an unlikely act of heroism, an island of humanity in an ocean of barbarism. On December 17, General Matsui entered Nanjing triumphantly for an official ceremony. Horrified by what he saw in the streets, he ordered discipline. But it was too late. Prince Asaka ignored the complaints. Executions continued, now accompanied by systematic rapes. Between 20,000 and 80,000 women were violated, according to estimates by the Tokyo Tribunal. 10-year-old girls and 70-year-old elders were victims. Many were murdered after rape. Entire homes were set ablaze with families still alive inside, during nights of terror. The so-called Contest of 100 Heads, published in the Tokyo Nichi newspaper, celebrated Lieutenants Mukai and Noda beheading Chinese prisoners as sport. Mukai reached 106, Noda 105. The newspaper treated the massacre as a sporting adventure. At the Yangtze River, 30,000 prisoners were machine-gunned in a single night near Mufushin. Photographs taken by Japanese soldiers, discovered after the war, show smiles over piles of corpses. It was pride, not shame. The massacre was celebrated as military glory. The world learned through correspondents like Tilman Durden of the New York Times and Archibald Steele of the Chicago Daily News, who witnessed the first days and wrote devastating reports. Films by missionary John Rabe, smuggled to the United States, showed the horror in images. But international attention soon turned to Europe. Hitler was preparing the annexation of Austria. The United States remained isolationist. Western powers protested diplomatically, but did nothing. Nanjing was abandoned to its fate, and its dead would cry out for justice in the years ahead. By early February 1938, the massacre officially ended. 6 weeks had passed. Estimates range from 40,000 to 300,000 dead, with the Tokyo Military Tribunal adopting the higher number. 15,000 homes were burned. A third of the city became rubble. Corpses floated in the Yangtze for weeks. Charity organizations buried bodies in mass graves. The Red Swastika Society recorded 43,000 burials, while the Chongshantung Society counted 112,000, documentation considered crucial by historians to this day. Li Xiuying was 18 and pregnant when 3 soldiers tried to rape her. She resisted with such fury that she received 37 stab wounds, but miraculously survived. She became a key witness at the Tokyo Tribunal. Xia Shuqin, aged 8, saw 7 family members massacred before her eyes. She and her 4-year-old sister survived hidden beneath their grandmother's body. Minnie Vautrin, consumed by guilt for not saving more women, took her own life in 1941, in the United States. Trauma pursued even those who resisted. In 1946, the International Military Tribunal for the Far East, in Tokyo, began prosecuting Japanese war crimes. General Iwane Matsui was found guilty of criminal negligence and hanged in December 1948, aged 70. Lieutenant General Hisao Tani, commander in Nanjing, was tried by the Chinese and executed in April 1947. Mukai and Noda, of the Contest of 100 Heads, were executed in January 1948. But Prince Asaka, protected by imperial immunity negotiated by MacArthur, completely escaped international justice. For decades, Japan imposed official silence over Nanjing. Japanese textbooks minimized or omitted the massacre, calling it merely an incident. The term systematic rape was banned from school publications. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and other politicians visited the Yasukuni Shrine, which honors Class A war criminals. Nationalist groups systematically deny the atrocities, classifying the numbers as Chinese communist fabrication. The Chinese government, in turn, uses the massacre as a political tool, feeding resentments that shape Sino-Japanese relations in the 21st century. In 1997, Chinese-American historian Iris Chang published The Rape of Nanking, a book that became a worldwide bestseller and reintroduced the massacre to Western consciousness. Chang interviewed survivors, unearthed Rabe's documents in Germany, and exposed Japanese academic complicity. But she paid a devastating price. Consumed by death threats and depression, she took her own life in 2004, at age 36. The Nanjing Massacre Museum, opened in 1985, houses 10,000 artifacts, 100,000 documents, and the remains of mass graves, preserving memory for future generations. The trauma shaped modern Chinese national identity. December 13th became National Memorial Day, instituted in 2014 by Xi Jinping. Chinese schools devote weeks to studying the massacre. American Dr. Robert Wilson became a pioneer in treating war trauma. The legal concept of crimes against humanity was strengthened by the Tokyo Tribunal, influencing the statutes of the International Criminal Court decades later. Nanjing was not merely a tragedy, it was a watershed in the way humanity judges war and accountability. The atrocities of Nanjing echo in subsequent genocides. The strategy of racial dehumanization seen in Rwanda in 1994, where 800,000 Tutsis were killed in 100 days, follows an identical pattern. The systematic rapes documented in Bosnia in 1992, in Darfur and in the Syrian civil war repeat the tactic of destruction through sexual violence. Modern deniers, whether of Nanjing, the Holocaust, or slavery, use similar rhetorical methods. Studying Nanjing vaccinates humanity against the poison that still tries to rewrite the blood of history. 89 years later, Nanjing remains an open scar on human history. John Rabe died poor in Berlin in 1950, but his diaries, published in 1997, are a fundamental document. Minnie Vautrin became a symbol of courage. Iris Chang, of conscience. The survivors, now centenarians, repeat to their grandchildren, "Do not forget." Because forgetting lets it happen again. Truth, documented in hundreds of thousands of pages, keeps fighting silence. If you enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories.